3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everyone, to the Briones Pickleball Podcast. It's your host, Jordan Briones. Yes, in this episode, if you have not been living under a rock, you probably have heard the breaking news. Basically, the news is Ben Johns, Collin Johns breaking up. They're splitting in 2025. Was it inevitable? Was it, this thing predetermined? I'm going to get all into that in this episode. A little bit different episode, just really quickly. My co-host Caden is visiting family, and so this is new. Okay, so you may not like it. I'm gonna try it. It's a solo podcast, but in this podcast, I'm going to be really diving deep into kind of like strategy and really talking through this John situation. Whether it's 100% confirmed, I'm not 100% certain, but I am pretty certain. I'm going to talk about some PPA and MLP players that I've talked to confirm this. But you've heard it right here. If you haven't heard it already, the Johns Bros are splitting up. I'm going to talk about why it didn't work, what went wrong, what happens to Collin. Who is he going to play with? Is he going to play, and what do I foresee in his future? And also, I'm going to talk about who Ben's partners or potential partners could be, because that's going to be a long conversation by itself. And number 5, I'm really going to talk about the future of this sport that we all love, the future of pickleball and the game, and where do I see this game moving to and evolving in the next 3 to 5 years. So again, this is a solo podcast today, a little bit different. I know, no co-host with me today, but I do want to mention again, like I just said, this is really going to be breaking down kind of a lot of what we've seen unfold. And I'm really going to be trying to talk about strategy and adjustments and things like that from a coach's perspective. Okay, so this is from a coach's perspective. I watch pretty much every final, at least men's doubles. I do watch mixed and women's from time to time, but I do watch more men's doubles. I just don't have a ton of time to watch every single match. But when it comes to gold medal matches, I watch pretty much every one. So I do keep up with the top players in the game, what they're doing differently from 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and where do I see the game moving to, okay? So I just want to shout out Selkirk. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast, and I just appreciate you all. It's almost Christmas time. I hope you have a great time with your families, and a happy new year in 2025. I may get another podcast out until then, but I'm not sure. First things first, I just want to mention really quick, we have a really awesome opportunity in 2025 to work with myself and Caden, that you know on the podcast. Come join us for a 5-day intensive. We'd love to see you there. We train you and a group of other players that is the same skill level and have the same motivations as yourself. If you're really serious about improving your game for a full 5 days, check out the link below to check that out. So that's a 5-day intensive. And my pickleball tip of the week, I'm actually going to get to that a little bit later because I want to dive right into Ben and Collin. Okay. So was it a ticking time bomb? I honestly thought from a coach's perspective, they've won titles, many titles together. I'm going to get into the stats, but I honestly thought they were going to have maybe possibly another year or so, but it came a lot sooner than we thought, and we're going to get into that. Just my initial thoughts on the split. Ben parting ways with Collin is, they probably need a change. And at the end of the day, okay, winning isn't everything, but when you are competing at the highest level in any sport, winning in a way is everything. And I guarantee you this split would not happen right now if Ben and Collin, continued to win the same way that they did and dominated in 2023. Okay. So Ben wants to make more history and solidify himself more as the GOAT. The GOAT of pickleball from right now. We've heard in other interviews that he's probably not going to play a day past 30. That's something that he's said and I've heard. So because of that, I think he's 24, 25 right now. He has 5 more years. And if I were him and what he's doing right now, he wants to rack up as many titles as possible. And him as a top elite competitor, obviously it's more of a business decision. And we'll talk more about that. But we'll get into it right away. So number 2 on my list, why didn't it work and what went wrong? So actually before we go into why it went wrong, I'm going to read a couple of articles talking about the split. But before that, I just want to remind everyone, this game is continuing to become more and more and more aggressive. And one of the reasons why I believe the split happened is because there's just not enough offense from the right from Collin. And, obviously that's not a trade secret. Everyone knows that Collin was getting a little bit more aggressive, but I'm telling you, it just wasn't enough. If you want to learn how to become more aggressive from the non-volley zone line in your game, go to ATTACKMasterClass.com. And this is a free video that I worked really hard on making so that you can learn some really key strategy and techniques so that you can become more aggressive from the non-volley zone. So again, ATTACKMasterClass.com. Check it out. It's a way to support us, and you get a free video, and just check it out there. Okay. Now I'm gonna hop into a couple articles here, and the Dink, Thomas at the Dink, shout out to you. He's the first one that kind of leaked it. And again, I have talked to a couple of PPA players, MLP players. They have confirmed that this is probably true. So again, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty close to that, talking to other players on the tour. Thomas is the first one that leaked it, and for the Dink. So historical dominance, I just want to talk really quickly. I want to get a baseline of what Ben and Collin have accomplished over the last few years, and then I'm going to talk about why it didn't work, what went wrong, and my thoughts from a coach's perspective. Okay, so historical dominance. The Johns brothers won 33 titles together. So titles, 33 gold medal matches, PPA matches together. 2023 is when that is the year that they pretty much won almost everything. And Ben Johns himself has 123 PPA titles overall, while Collin has 31, making them the top 2 male players in terms of titles from 2021 to 2023. That is when Ben and Collin dominated the sport. In 2024, they had some challenges. As of July 2024, they had not won a men's doubles final in 5 months, their longest drought as partners. So there's so many players coming into the game. Obviously, one of the reasons is, I'm going to get into it in a little bit, but one of the reasons, the talent has gotten so much better. Collin and Ben have, been so far above everyone else that it was very easy to win. Now with all the players, and we're going to get to it, I'm going to get to my thoughts on all that. That is, that is why it's been harder and harder for them to win. So their longest drought, 5 months, the beginning, I believe, of 2024. And the recent finishes, semis, fourth, fifth place. And that's that. Another article I want to share with you, pickleball.com article. John's brothers announced split. And I'm going to show this here so everyone could see if you're watching here. It says Ben and Collin Johns, the most dominant partnership in pickleball, had agreed to split up after 4 years of playing together. They held 33 total titles and 43 medals and had been the number one doubles team for the majority of their time. And this is why I do think it's true. I guess this is a real quote. I guess we'll have to see how this pans out, but this is Ben Johns talking about the split after the news leaked. So it says this. This is Ben Johns. We've achieved so much as a team together, and I'm really proud of what we've accomplished, Ben said when asked about the split. Change-ups in life and in sports can be a refreshing thing. We feel like this decision will help us find new purpose, create variety, and re-engage us in the sport that we love so much. This is not necessarily the end of our partnership for good, just a healthy adjustment for the time being. We'll always be brothers first and part of each other's pickleball legacy. We're excited to see what 2025 holds for the both of us. So, I think that Ben is a very intelligent guy, and he is obviously one of the best pickleball minds that exists today. And I thought that was a really great comment from Ben. I'm glad that obviously he's putting his brother first. Time for a switch. This happens in all sports, so I'm not surprised. I do think that it came a little early, and we'll get to that. But that was super surprising. In this pickleball.com article, I do want to get into some other stats which actually is pretty interesting, and I'm going to talk about right after this what went wrong with Ben and Collin, and then I'm going to talk about some potential partnerships for Ben. But here we go. Men's doubles career gold medals. So check this out. This is really interesting to see. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. But Ben Johns with 43 gold medals. Collin Johns with 33. Okay, so he's second place. Obviously, I think almost 100% of them were with Ben. There might be a couple that weren't. Number third, who would you guess? You probably wouldn't guess Matt Wright, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, a lot of Matt Wright's wins were with Ben, but we'll talk about that later. Number 4, gold medals career in the PPA, Riley Newman. Number 5, Dylan Frazier with 10, J.W. Johnson with 10, tied for 5th place. And then it says there's no others in doubles figures. So those are the top 5 men's doubles teams. Top 5 individual medals. Ben Johns at the top 43, Collin Johns with 33 medals, Matt Wright 18, Riley Newman 14, Dylan and J-Dub at 10. And men's doubles teams now, as a team, career gold medals, Ben and Collin Johns 33. Okay. Dylan, Frazier, J.W. Johnson, 10 together as a duo. Riley Newman, Matt Wright, 8. Ben Johns and Matt Wright, 8. And then Tyson McGuffin, Riley Newman at 3, and Hayden Patriquin and Federico Stackstrud at 3. And I believe they have not lost yet in a tournament. So they're a new team. So that's that. Here's a little hug from Ben and Collin where we're seeing a little image here. So that's that. And I just want to right now comment your thoughts. What do you think about the split here between Ben and Collin? Do you think that it was the right time? Do you not have any thoughts about it? Obviously, we're going to be getting into it. Why did they split? What didn't work? Okay, so from a coach's perspective, I have been coaching almost a decade now. The incredible thing is, and I'm so grateful for this, I'm probably going to work really hard on a video for all of you. If you have followed me for any amount of time, first of all, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, join our email list. But regardless, if you've been following me anytime, you know that I have been in the game quite a while. It's going to be 10 years in January for me playing this game, this wonderful game of pickleball. It's opened up so many opportunities for me, and I'm just super grateful. So that's number one. So I've seen this game evolve. I've seen it like just totally continue to evolve, even from when I first started. And I think what makes me a really good coach is because I study the game very, 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 very well and in detail. And I've had to change my game. I've been playing this game so long, like I've had to change my game as I've helped other players along the way. So obviously there's other good coaches out there, but I specifically, I would say, in a very few coaches today have been playing the game as long as I have and coaching full time. So I've seen it change, and I'm going to hop in. Why didn't it work? What went wrong? Well, number one on that list, as a coach, why do I think that Ben and Collin split up is the talent and the gap closure, I'll call it. Ben and Collin, they had a pickleball system, and what do I mean by that? They had a strategy, a court coverage, dinking patterns. They had everything locked down to pretty much beat every single team. And if you study the game like me, Ben and Collin are at their best when they are controlling dink rallies at the kitchen line. And they will beat you every single time when they are controlling dink rallies every single time. So that's where their success laid. Obviously, Ben and Collin, their skills are off the charts, and they will get to the non-volley zone line every time pretty much on their serve. And then when they're returning, they're either going to keep you back, you're going to make an error, or when you actually get to the net, they're still going to grind you down with dinks and force speed ups in difficult situations, and that's how they're going to grind you and beat you down. So the talent gap has closed. So these players that are coming in, I'm going to name a ton of them, okay? And I'm not trying to exclude anyone, but off the top of my head, Kwang Duong, got CJ Klinger, we got young kids, Hayden Patriquin. There's so many players now with versatility and attacking. The attacking out of the air and off the bounce in this game, and the hands battles, and obviously the paddle technology, the power of the paddles in today's game will decrease the time that you're going to need to have to react to balls. So players are speeding up a little bit earlier, and when the speed ups are initiated, the firefights, at least in men's doubles, are not as long because of the speed of the ball. So talent, paddle technology, and I'm going to lastly talk about the system that Ben and Collin have been using over the past couple years. Not only has that been seen by all the players trying to beat Ben and Collin, But that system that they played in, we'll call it the Johns system. I'll just term it the Johns system for now. That system has been studied. It's been studied immensely. And as a coach, if I was coaching against the Johns over these past couple of years, I did see some things that I can maybe help other players try to beat them, because there are certain things in that system that, that there are some holes in the system. And one of it is just really attacking and initiating attacks. So that system was studied by a lot of different players, and the dink patterns and the different things that players have adapted and changed to compete against the Johns brothers. I think it's a lot easier to play against a system or a strategy when you've seen it 100 times, right? And this is another thing where I think the Johns, it is a little bit harder for them when you have these new teams coming in, different partnerships. The thing is, Ben and Collin do what they do really well, but when they have a new team in front of them, they have to quickly figure out what patterns are going to work, where do they need to keep the ball, and where do they need to not hit the ball, and they have to adjust on the fly. And I honestly think that Ben and Collin's job adjusting is much harder than someone coming in, a team that's fresh and hungry, and they obviously know the Johns system. So if I coach Collin Johns, now this is all hypothetical, okay? I'm not saying I'm better than Collin Johns. I'm not saying that this could have been a reality, right? I'm just saying from a coach's eye, as I really study the game, break down matches, okay? So number one, if the Johns brothers were to do what they do and continue to dominate, number one on the list, Collin would have to be more aggressive. Obviously, that is number one. Now, I'm going to dive into really specifically, because that's not new news, but from a coach, I'm going to tie in some pieces that are really important, okay? Because Ben's new partner, when he picks them up, these are the pieces that were missing in Collin's game. Now, no shade to Collin. Collin, we've talked a few times, and we're good. But from a coach's eye, what are Collin's strengths? Let's just go over that right now. Resetting. I mean, he's a reset machine. Probably, arguably the number one resetter, right? Number two, Dinks. He can keep Dinks down. He doesn't pop up. He doesn't make mistakes. So actually for Dinks, I'm going to say consistency in Dinks. And basically with Collin, Ben trusted that him and his brother can get to that non-volley zone line 99% of the time, working through that transition zone. No matter if Collin hit 1, 2, 3, 4 resets, he could trust his brother that they're going to get to the line. Now, here's where the problem lies. What could have Collin done differently? Well, the aggression and also the shot options that he needed to develop for continuing to grow and beat these other teams. Number one on the list, this is not really in order, I'm thinking it through as I'm talking to you right now, but number one is off the bounce speed ups on the forehand side. Obviously with Ben taking around 70, give or take 10%, sometimes 60%, sometimes 80%, sometimes 90%. But with Ben taking so much of the court, Collin really doesn't get a ton of backhands, right? So on the forehand side, off of the bounce, on any dink that bounces in front of Collin, his off the bounce speed ups, his actual, I would say, technique was definitely above average when we talk about pro level speed ups. Okay. So Collin compared to a 4.5, a 5.0, obviously his technique and his consistency is way better, right? But I'm saying compared to the elite pros, his off the bounce attacks were subpar. So that hurts him and hurts them a lot because he can't actually attack as much or as often. There are many dead dinks. There are many dead dinks that have come over the net that Collin could really be attacking, but because he wasn't confident in it, or it wasn't as consistent, or his speed ups didn't have enough pace and or spin, he would dink the next ball back. So not only do Ben and Collin's opponents not have to worry about Collin speeding up, but now the points have to be grinded out longer, and there's a potential for the other team to attack first. Because if Ben had Collin and Collin was very, very comfortable with attacking off the bounce, Collin could hit his spots on the first attack, and then Ben could clean up middle every time. But because of Collin's technique and his ability to attack off the bounce, like some of the other elite pros, that was a liability at the top level. Number two, I'm going to also just talk about, out of the air speed ups, I would say as well. We're talking about all attacking. You're going to see a common theme here, but out of the air swinging volleys on the forehand side, again, I would attribute that to maybe partially height, technique, but out of the air, his speed ups and his location and target on his spots compared to some of the elite level pros, which we're going to go through in a second, his location and his attacking speed and also the spin he puts on those forehand out of the air swinging volleys weren't, it wasn't as aggressive as some of the other elite pros. So again, a mentality mindset. There are certain balls that are pretty much at net level or a little bit before. By the way, if you're a 5.0, 5.5 player and you get a ball where you're leaning in on at net level, you're attacking it. You're attacking it all day long. So there were balls that are pretty high at that net level, which Collin wouldn't attack because either, he just wasn't comfortable attacking that ball, or he wasn't confident in hitting his spots. In our videos, we talk about hitting targets, right? Not only does your technique and, the speed and pace and spin of your attacks have to be on point, but where you hit them, the elite players can hit very, very specific spots on the body, away from the body, that cause pop-ups and weak counters. Because when I speed up a ball, if you're at a high level and you're speeding up the ball, what you're going for, what you're trying to achieve is a weak counter. I'm not going for winners per se. I'm not, going for anything else but a weaker counter that my partner and I can gain the advantage right away. Okay? So, the next thing on the list. So, off the bounce speed ups, out of the air speed ups. Number 3 is offensive dink pressure. So one of Collin's strengths was consistency. You give him a ball, he's on the right, you give him a ball to his forehand, and he's not going to miss that ball. I mean, if my life was on the line and, I needed someone to make a dink, Collin would be in that conversation, or he'd be, at the top of the list or really close. But there is a difference. And if you're listening to this podcast or watching it, there is a difference between just getting your dink in and making it unattackable and actually putting pressure, topspin, attacking dinks, hitting those kinds of dinks to your opponent where not only are you making it unattackable, but you're putting major high pressure on your opponents. So in our videos, we talk about dinking with topspin a lot. Topspin is the most aggressive dink that you can hit. It's more aggressive than slice. It's more aggressive than flat balls, which Collin kind of hit pretty frequently. Topspin is more aggressive because it comes up and it comes down. And when it hits close to the feet, your opponents are going to have to hit from a very low position or back up. So one of the things that Collin didn't have, and I think that he should have developed, is really, really dinking offensively, and that would be dinking with topspin. As you can see, all the matches, Collin actually was very good at taking a lunge step out and kind of slicing or lifting the balls back. Now, again, these balls were not attackable per se, but they're not aggressive enough to set Ben up. So, the other thing, we talked about off the bounce speed ups, we talked about out of the air, and now speed ups, off the bounce speed ups, out of the air speed ups, and topspin dinks. The fourth thing is going to be his counters. Okay? So when you compare Collin's counters to pretty much everyone else, I mean, his counters are elite. But one of the things that I think that certain players have, and someone that Ben is going to choose, is somebody with very scary counters, is what I'll call it. Now, Collin did a great job sliding to his right, getting to his backhand. Again, in that system that Ben and Collin played, because Ben was so far over to his right, past the center line, Collin pretty much only had to take a backhand. He only had to take a backhand counter. He rarely had to do a forehand. Sometimes he would scorpion, but he rarely had to take a forehand. So in that system, Ben has to cover so much of the court. So as I get into possibilities of Ben's partners, I'm going to kind of talk strategy on that. But again, the part that Collin lacked was, I'll call them scary counters, because there's some players today that I would not want to speed up against. If I'm going to speed up against Collin, I know that I have to hit a very specific spot. I know that he's going to slide to his right all the time, but his counter is not going to be as fast or as hard as some of the players that I'm going to mention later in the podcast. So, counters, and number 5 is going to be drives. Now, Collin, he drove the ball occasionally, and it's funny because the announcers, shout out to Adam Stone, Dave Fleming, a whole bunch of other announcers, but when Collin would drive the ball, they would notice it and it would be different, right? Collin's drives, again, at an elite level, were below average. His drives were, they were good. They were nice and low. But the drives weren't really giving Ben any opportunities to actually poach on the fifth shot or do a shake and bake at all, right? Collin would drive the ball so him and Ben could hit a fifth shot drop. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon, Ben could maybe poach off of a third shot Collin drive, but very, very seldomly. So another skill that I think that Collin didn't quite have was the ability to really, really put a lot of dip and pace on his third shot drives to maybe set up Ben for some easy points. So, what could they have done differently? Well, I think that they did everything that they could, and I think that Collin, without really honing in and developing those 5 skills that I just mentioned, I think it was really, it's just a timing thing on, players beating them. And by the way, each of those things that I just mentioned about Collin developing, off the bounce speed ups, swing and volleys, right? Talked about topspin dinks. These are all things that we talk about in our masterclass, attackmasterclass.com. So check it out. But all those things, if you think about it, even counters and drives, all 5 of those things, it's all offense. I would even call a counterattack, even though someone's, attacking you. When I'm countering, I'm hitting an offensive shot, an offensive counter. So every one of those things that I do believe that Collin was kind of missing in his game, all have to do with offense. And later on in the show, later on in this podcast, I'm going to be talking about where this sport is going, and obviously it's going more and more offensive. So, what happens to Collin? Does he coach? Does he get another partner? Deckel, him and Deckel and Ben are good friends. There's a lot to get through here, so I'm just gonna quickly say I'm not sure. I don't know what happens to Collin. Maybe I'll have him on the podcast one day. Collin, you're always welcome. But what happens to Collin? Is he obsolete? Does he pick up another partner? I would say this, and this is just honest thoughts from a coaching perspective. Okay? No shade thrown, honest thoughts from a coaching perspective. With the field that we have today, the Hayden Patrickens of the world, Federico, Andre, just the team matchups that we have today, if Collin doesn't play with Ben, I see him potentially getting to maybe quarters, maybe semis. And basically what I'm saying is, with whoever you match Collin up with, it's going to be very hard for him to win a gold medal. The reason why is because the system that Ben and Collin created is with Ben taking up about 70 to 80% of the court, and no other player that we've seen today, can cover that much court effectively against top pros besides Ben Johns. So that's my thought. Now, can Collin adapt his game to where instead of taking 30% of the court, can he kind of take 45% of the court and play a little bit more straight up? Possibly. But with the field, with the depth of the field today, and with Ben Johns getting a new partner who is going to be a top player, it's going to be very hard for Collin to win a gold medal. So I'm not really sure. I don't know what he should do, but that's just my initial thoughts. My guess would be if Collin continues to play in 2025, I would give him maybe a shot of making it to the finals, but actually winning a gold medal with Ben Johns in the draw and all the other top players in the draw. I would not give him a huge chance on that. That's my thoughts from a coaching perspective. Number 4. So what happens to Ben? This is going to be interesting, okay? What do we see about him? What do we know? We know that from that Dink article, he may have reached out to Tardio. I'm going to show you this here. Top 10 players. And look at this. Number 1 on the list. Interesting. We have Collin Johns because he's played more tournaments and he's won every thing with Ben. But Ben and Collin, number 1 and 2. Federico, Stacktrud, J-Dub. Shout out to Dylan, Deco, Hayden, Tyson, Pablo, Tardio. Right now, I'm going to go through some possibilities, some possible partnerships for Ben Johns. And as a coach, who would I like to see him play with? Who would I see him match up with? Number 1. Actually, not number 1. Let's first start off with, this is assuming Ben Johns continues to play the left side. Now, this is a very interesting question. Would Ben ever play the right? And at this point, my gut feeling is no. But I think that would be so interesting. I would love to see Ben play the right to see how he creates offense and how he controls a middle. And that being said, that's kind of why I don't think that's going to happen, because it's very hard to kind of control the middle and control the game from the right unless you're playing like a Tardio or a Hayden big right. So these are my list of players that I believe that Ben could team up with if he continues to be a left side player. Number 1 is going to be Hayden Patriquin. A close second is Gabe Tardio, okay? So they're 1 and 2. But what makes them so dynamic, Hayden and Tardio, they are aggressive. They're so aggressive. And all those things that I just mentioned, about Collin Johns kind of missing links, the missing pieces in his game. Topspin dinks, off the bounce speedups, elite swinging volleys, locations on hitting swinging volleys, big counters, huge counters. Gabe Tardio, I would give I would give that hat to him. And drives. Tardio and Hayden not only have shown that they can win at the elite level and have the confidence to win golds, but they have all those missing pieces to what Ben needs. And simply, Ben needs someone to help him create offense. That's the number 1 thing. Now, Ben is so good that theoretically and on paper, and I really do believe this, he could probably honestly win, or I'm going to name different players, but he could, at any given day, he could win a gold with like 10 players. But with Hayden, Patriquin, or Gabriel Tardio, it would just make it that much easier because those guys are so good on attacking, which will set Ben up for putaways in the middle. And they play big rights. And this will help Ben not only conserve energy, but it'll be a different look because Ben's not playing 80%. Let's say now Ben is playing 60%, sometimes 50%. Maybe Ben even, if he's playing with Tardio or Patriquin, maybe Ben's at times playing 45% of the court or 40% of the court. That's a different look. And he can rely and count on Hayden and Tardio to not just create offense, but to set up offense, their offensive dink pressure, their rolls, their topspin dink rolls, pulling players off the court, and just to create a little bit of a lift, a little bit of pop up for them to continue to stay on offense. So third on my list. Now, all these, I'm just going to say this. I'm not really deep into know who gels, who's friends, who's not. Okay, so this list here is strictly, okay, I'm going to say it right now, strictly on talent and what their shots have. So number 3 is Christian Alshon. Now, him and Christian might not be great friends or whatever, so it might not work, but I'm talking about talent alone. Okay, but Alshon, we've seen him play the left and the right. How long he is, how much he could reach into the kitchen, how much offense he can create. Christian Alshon would be, kind of in my top 5 of who Ben could partner with. And again, this is assuming Ben continues to play the left. And by the way, I didn't forget lefties. That's in my next segment. I'm going to talk about lefties in a second. But Hayden, Patriquin, Gabriel Tardio, Christian Alshon. Christian Alshon has so much offense from both wings. He's really long. Now, is Christian's mental game there? I'm not quite sure. We've seen him win gold medals, but is that someone Ben would pick right now to count on? I think Tardio and Patriquin have kind of the upper hand when we talk about how much they've won so far. So that's why I put Alshon next. Dekel Bar. Shout out to Big D. Actually, a lot of you don't know this, but me and Dekel teamed up a long time ago. That was a long time ago. A little East-West challenge, but Dekel's a great guy. But him and Ben have been friends a long time. That's obviously on the list. Now, Dekel's been playing a lot of left. So him on the right would be interesting. I would like to see, can he Ernie from the right side effectively? Can he put enough dink pressure? Can he basically put enough pressure with his forehand? Yeah, that would be a big question mark there. These other 3, actually, right after that, I'm gonna place Riley Newman there. I think that it would be good to see, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I've had other sources say, yeah, that's probably not gonna happen. Maybe they don't gel really well. And with Riley playing the right, the only thing that I would say is his outside dink, that topspin, or not topspin dink, because he slices almost everything on that right side. That would be something to see, because what we've seen in the past is Riley could play both sides very well, but when he's on the right, and if someone consistently dinks to past Riley's outside foot and makes him shuffle over, he is more than likely taking a slice because of his grip. So that would be a task to figure out if that was a thing. But again, I've gotten from some PPA sources that are players on the PPA. I'll say it like that. That's probably not going to happen. But this is these last 4 are kind of like the second tier, what I think that could happen. Okay. So we got Hayden, Tardio, Alshon, Dekel, kind of like my top tier. That's who I believe can probably play with Ben, and they would be very successful. My second tier list would be Dylan Frazier, Matt Wright, Tyson McGuffin, and Zane Naruto. Shout out to you, Zane. Why do I think these 4 players? Dylan, he's proved himself. I mean, he has 10 finals with and gold medals with J-Dub. So definitely Dylan's on that list. I mean, he could be tier 1. Matt Wright, like we just talked about, has won a lot with Ben. I don't know if Ben Johns would go to Matt Wright again, but what I could tell you is Matt Wright has been winning even with other players. I mean, he's really evolved his game, Matt. So I wouldn't take Matt totally off the table. Tyson McGuffin. Now, Tyson McGuffin and Ben Johns, if you haven't, been part of the game too long, they've been rivals for a long time. Actually, Ben, Tyson, and myself, we started right around the same time. I think we all played nationals, around the first nationals around the same time, if I believe. But Tyson, man, he's been balling out. He's been making big runs in singles and runs in doubles as well. Tyson has mastered the right side. So I would definitely put him on the tier 2 list. And Zane Navratil. As I look through the top players here on the men's side, I'm trying to say who would play the right. Now, James Ignatowicz, I see him as maybe a possible option, but James, to me, I haven't seen a lot of him playing the right side. So I would put someone like a Zane Navratil, who's played the right pretty well, in that conversation. So that's my thoughts. Let me know below if Ben continues to play the left side, who would be his best partner on the right. Now I'm going to get to some lefties. All right, so that's definitely on the table. On the top of the list, I have CJ Klinger. Beast. Continue to watch. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Briones Pickleball, and our new channel, A Real Pickleball, because we just had CJ Klinger here in the backyard, and we had some pro games. We're going to do some really cool content for that. But CJ Klinger, shout out to you, man. I met him for the first time. One of the things I did not know, I guess, everything on TV looks small, right? CJ Klinger, I did not know how tall that kid was. He's like a beanstalk. That kid is tall, and he's only getting taller. He's only getting better. But CJ Klinger is definitely an option for Ben Johns. I don't know where he sits between the other players, but I'm doing lefties together. Augie and Pablo Tellez, definitely an option. I don't see that realistically happening. I think, the Hayden, the Tardios, I think that's probably Ben's first choice. We'll have to see. It's going to be really interesting. But Augie Gus, shout out to you, Aug. And Pablo Tellez, obviously, are front runners when it comes to the lefty group. I saw a comment, Tyler Leung. They've had some success. Ben Johns and Tyler have had some success when we talk about, them playing together. But I'm not too sure. How that would go. Yeah. So that's that. Just for funsies. All right. Just for fun. If Ben played the right side, right? If Ben played the right, who can we put playing with him as they would play the left? Federico Stackstrud, Andre Diascu, J.W. Johnson. Now let's just do some fun kind of experimenting here. Would J.W. play the left? Sorry, would J.W. play the right? And could that be a possibility? Play with Ben? I don't think so. J.W. is so locked in. And by the way, the topspin dink, the whole kind of thing with his offense on his forehand, I don't think JW would do well on the right when we talk about elite players, or he would have to do a lot of work. Andre Diascu, I think, is more versatile, maybe playing the right, and a Federico Stackstrud as well. I don't think that those are going to happen, because I think Andre and Fed have locked in partners, but also not only that, but I think they just play the left really well. So I don't see that happening. But yeah, that's my list, everyone. That was my list. Hopefully it was concise. It wasn't too confusing. I mentioned a lot of players. I don't want to forget this. Yeah, I mentioned James Ignatovic as a wild card. I don't think that's going to happen, though. 6 months from now or so, a year from now, it's going to be really interesting to see how Quang Duong develops his game. And if we haven't really seen Quang on the right too much. We've seen him more on the left. But Quang Duong as a wild card, I'd put it on there. I wouldn't put it past Ben Johns to at some point try a tournament with Quang. But again, that depends on how much work he's putting in on the right or the left, right? Quang is a beast. He's one of the up-and-coming players that you definitely should watch out for. He's obviously made his way in singles, but his doubles game is getting very, very good. Lastly, this game has changed. I want to talk about the future of pickleball, where I see pickleball going in the next 3 to 5 years. It's changed a lot faster than I thought or that I would have guessed. And I'm going to talk about, I have some notes here, my coaching philosophy a little bit too. Before I get into that though, I want to talk about, just pitch you just a little commercial break here. If you are a 3-0, 3-5, even 4-0 player, and you want to learn the game the right way, we developed a video series that our team worked really hard on and that I taught. Go to totalpickleballmastery.com, and it's a video series that we worked on, and it's a way that you can show some small support for our business here at Briones Pickleball. But we go through all the different shots, the really fundamental ways to move your feet, where to position yourself. totalpickleballmastery.com. Check it out. All right, so now let's get right back. Now, this game has changed way faster than I thought or guessed. Just to give everyone, I know it's a longer podcast, but just to give everyone a sense, and I'm going to do a video. Comment below if you want me to do a decade, 10-year video in 2025, because I do think I'm going to do it. I'm so excited to work on that. But when I started the game 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, okay, 9-point-something years ago, there was no dinking or dropping the ball. So third shot drops or dinking with topspin. Incredible. I mean, incredible. What I mean by incredible is like how much this game has changed. I remember as a coach in my first few years coaching players, I would not even teach topspin because it was not a thing. It was not a thing. The Ben Johns of the world, really, the Tyson McGuffins of the world, Riley Newmans with the two-handed backhand. Not only were there not topspin, but there wasn't two-handed backhands when I started. I'm going way back. But how this game has evolved and changed is incredible. And now in my game today, obviously I've developed all the shots that pro players are hitting. Flicks, rolls, topspin dinks, even some of the speed-ups that we're seeing. Topspin drops. Everything is hit today. Majority with topspin. The two-handed backhand came full force. 2025, we're not going to see a lot of players on the pro tour without a two-handed backhand. Fair. I mean, you can say that today. But it's changed way faster than I thought because of paddle technology, number one, and the athletes of the players from different backgrounds, tennis, badminton, other sports coming in. So where was wrong? I did not foresee how aggressive the game was going to get. I knew it was going to get faster, but I didn't really kind of foresee what players can do with the paddles, and that was probably due to the paddle technology at the time. And where I see pickleball in 5 years, 3 to 5 years, lots of players are coming in from other sports, but obviously tennis. I do think tennis is supreme when it comes to like what sport translates the best into pickleball out of other sports, badminton, squash, whatever. I do think tennis is because of the topspin aspect and spacing and all that stuff. But man, when players coming in, you see a Kwang Duong. Shout out to Zane Ford. I've seen him play. He's a new up and comer. But the semi-Western forehand, I'm going to say it now, folks. Semi-Western forehand drives, fourth shots, just developing the dip and the spin. You're seeing Kwang do it on his drives. I think in 3 to 5 years, a lot of players, or all players, at least on their forehand side, probably will be hitting with semi-Western grip. Now, I don't know about all, right? Because there's still going to be players who don't have that grip. But as I see it, I've experimented with it this weekend. Now, I didn't play super high level tennis, so I didn't have the natural, like any tennis player that trains today at a high level is using a semi-Western grip in tennis. That's training at a high level, like they're trying to get a scholarship or something like that. So when they come into this game, it's very natural for them. But that dipping down spin. So that's one of the changes I see in the next 3 to 5 years. But on top of that, obviously, I mean, anyone can say this, but just more attacking, off of the bounce, speed ups, attacking earlier. The singles game is going to be really interesting. I think that even last year, 90% or more, I would say 95%, players will return the ball in singles and come up. I think that's going to get harder and harder to do. I think players like a Kwang Duong and other top players, shout out to Michael Lloyd, other players who have done really well in singles, it's going to get harder and harder to kind of cover the net. The net is so small. I mean, compared to tennis, like players come in net, but with the spin, with the semi-Western grip, with the talent, I think players are going to start to stay back a little bit more. Bigger serves and better passing shots are going to force players to stay back on their returns in singles. And we're seeing that in women's, but obviously in men. I think we're going to see that more. Just really quick, my coaching philosophy. Again, these are all things that I've seen. So basically more aggression. These are the things that I see, and I'm excited. I'm excited about this game because I'm going to grow with it. One thing as I've coached throughout all the years, my coaching philosophy is to teach things correctly, number one, and keep them very simple, and to make them, very comprehensive for whoever I'm teaching, and to continue to grow and evolve with the sport. I mean, just very baseline coaching philosophy. That's why I think that I relate to a lot of people. I hope that you watching our Briones Pickleball channel, or whoever, if you're watching any of our content, I hope that it's clear and concise. And I do appreciate all the viewers. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that really quick. Future of Briones Pickleball. I don't know why I had these notes in here. These are random notes. Future of Briones Pickleball. I just want to say thank you to all the viewers here. This sport has given me so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to coach and do this full time. And I just love this sport. It brings so many people together. Anyone can play it. And it's just been amazing. We're going to continue to make content in 2025. We're going to continue to come out with new offers, new things in 2025. Stay tuned for that. Lastly, I do want to play a video really quickly, and then I'll end the show. This is from a pro here. So if you know him, you know him. Here we go. Mr. Zane. Zane, shout out to Zane Navratil. I don't know if you're gonna get this on. I'm gonna try to just play this really loud, but here we go. Gonna let Zane do his thing here.
What's up, Briones Pickleball? Zane here, and Jordan was kind enough to let me tell you guys about Stop Alzheimer's Now. For the month of December, I'm giving all of my Cameo earnings to Stop Alzheimer's Now, which is an Austin-based nonprofit that gives 100% of everything they earn to Alzheimer's research. So if you want a pickleball tip, trick, or just me to sing some Merry Christmas song or Happy Hanukkah or whatever, please check that out. It's my Cameo page, Zane Avertell on Cameo, and it is a good Christmas gift or holiday gift for anybody, and you can feel good about doing it.
All right, so you probably didn't hear it that well. I'm gonna just reiterate: Zane Avertell to support Alzheimer's research. Go to Google and type in Zane Avertell Cameo. Have them record you something, or you can send to a friend. But he is giving his proceeds to Alzheimer research. But that's about it, everyone. Thank you so much. Definitely different podcast. I may not do another solo podcast ever. If you really enjoyed this was kind of nerdy. This is more for the pickleball nerds out there. What do I see? I mean, there was a lot of thoughts that I had to get through. I could have been more concise on them, but these are just kind of my initial thoughts, okay? These are just my thoughts and feelings of the Ben and Collin split, and what do I think about that? So that's about it, everyone. I just really appreciate everybody. Really appreciate everyone viewing. I seriously hope you have a great year in 2025. Here at Briones Pickleball, we're super grateful, and we appreciate you all. Hopefully we'll have Kaden on the next pod, and have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, have a Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.